Well, hello, my sweets. Listen, I'm so happy that you have joined us again for another episode of Let's Talk About Errrrythang with me, JonseySweet. Listen now, we have to end it. I think you've got it. I think that you have what it takes to go out into the world and do life fearlessly, okay? And so this is the last episode that we're gonna do on this series, but there's so much more to come. And I thought that for the last episode, I have no other than Mr. Kevin Levi Green. Let me say this, let me brag on him before he gets in a little something. So let me brag on him a little bit. He just choreographed Our Kind of People. He just choreographed Line Sisters. You can see Our Kind of People on Fox 50, and you can see Line Sisters on what, Lifetime? Lifetime Network, okay? So he's doing it and doing it and doing it well and doing it right. So listen, he is in the film and theater industry. He is the founder, the artistic director, and the choreographer. Can I say that right? The choreographer, right?
Right.
Of Techmoja. He can tell you how to do your goals and your dreams fearlessly, but I'll let him do that. I'm already hyping him up too much right now. I haven't even let him speak. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good, Jonesy. Thank you for having me here on your podcast.
You are so welcome. Thank you for saying yes. Tell my audience a little bit about you, what I didn't say, I guess.
Okay, well, I am you did tell them that I am a choreographer and director. I'm also a community organizer and a cultural innovator and an educator. I was born in Bolivia, North Carolina, population 193.
Literally? Or you
Literally. At the time when I was there, it was 193.
Oh, wow.
I have had to carve my own path. I am a graduate of the University of the North Carolina School of the Arts, where I studied dance professionally.
Okay.
And I have collaborated with many notable artists. I'm shouting them out because I aspire to be like them or my own version of them. And I currently founded Techmoja Dance and Theater Company with my mother, Donna Joyner Green, who is no longer with us, but back in 2009. And yeah, I tried to keep it brief.
It's okay. You'll have plenty of time to tell them how you do everything fearlessly, how you motivate yourself and others. Because when you're on the collegiate level, you also have to motivate your students when they get frustrated. You have to motivate them to say, hey, listen, you may not have it right now, but you're going to get it. So let's dive right in, right? Let's dive right in. Guys, this particular episode is entitled Fearless Motivation, but we're going to talk about opening the cage and what it means to be, trying to be big when little got you. Now, I did an episode about that, I want to say 2 years ago, right? And it's still prevalent today, because when you're trying to do everything that you possibly can when it comes to your goals, your dreams, whatever you aspire to be, and the mindset of people and sometimes your mindset, you kind of stay in a small place when you're bigger than this, right? You're bigger than this. And let me say this. The last time that you went to a zoo or you went to a circus, did you ever see the lion caged up? Have you ever asked yourself, why is that lion caged, right? If all it knows is the cage, if all it knows is captivity, why do they cage him up? Because despite the fact that that lion has been caged and held captive, something innately in him says you belong out there. You don't belong in here. So this is why the Fearless Motivational podcast that I've been doing for we're on episode 5, right? Episode 5, this is the last one, but the reason why I've been doing it is because it's important for you to understand that your instincts need to drive you. Your intentionality needs to move you, and your dreams need to be strategically aligned. So this is what this series is about. And this gentleman right here is going to give a testament to that, and he is going to share some light on a new piece that he's working on. And once he shares this piece, I'm going to allow the video to play so that you guys can get just a quick snippet, because you're definitely going to go out there and support, right? So I'm going to let Mr. Green, Kevin Leroy Green to be exact, talk about his new piece called Quiet as Kept.
So, Quiet as It's Kept is it's a call to action.
Okay.
It's an evening-length dance work that explores sexual trauma through the lens of Southern Blackness. It also explores silence in Black communities.
Okay.
I am a survivor of sexual trauma, and for so long, because of the defining things that the things that are supposed to define us, like I feared telling people what happened to me, and I kept it secret for a very long time, and I just now, after therapy and after creating this work, am now finally able to speak out about the sexual trauma. And I was also able to go and interview many people living in the coastal region about their experiences. And I've been trusted with their memoirs, and I intend to present some of those vignettes through dance with integrity and with honesty. And so Quiet as It's Kept is for the healing, right? It's to make something visible to people who may not want to hear it, like they don't want to talk about it, right? But like maybe when they see it, they'll finally speak out and they'll share their stories and be a part of the conversation, whether they are a survivor of sexual trauma or not. If not, we all know someone who is.
Yeah.
And so that's what Quiet as It's Kept is.
That's beautiful. I think that project is going to, when is it going to play? So that my audience knows to
Yes,
come out.
it's February 24th. It's at the Wilson Center. There's a 4:30 show and a 7:30 show. You know what? I'm going to go back and say that again because I want to edit that out.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's going to be at the Wilson Center. There is a 4:30 performance and a 7:30 performance. I'm trying to make sure that we understand that unlike most performances, this isn't a show. It's an experience and it's a conversation. And so it's not meant to be sensationalized, but it's meant to start the conversation in our community.
I think that's awesome. I think, you know, what you're doing will benefit a young woman or a young man who does not always have a voice, or they've been told, or people don't listen to them, or it's a sense of shame that overcomes them that causes them to just keep it a secret. Would you say that that's what happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to have the reputation of the guy who got raped in high school, or you know, the guy that you know, was in the headlines about being sexually assaulted. So I chose to keep my story to myself, my experience to myself, to my detriment. I mean, my parents went to the grave never knowing what happened. So I think I put that on my social media somewhere,
you did.
That is directly from my story because I never told my parents.
Is it easier now that they are gone to heaven, you know, God rest their souls, that they're not here? Is it easier to tell the story?
I think I would have eventually gotten around to telling it. I kind of compartmentalized everything, so I kind of took it and I placed it in the back of my brain, but there were things that were triggering that reminded me of that incident. And and it was hard to get away from it because those things exist in everyday life. And so I think I would have got around to it, but it's definitely a lot easier now that I have an understanding of how it can change things and it can help someone else.
Good. So you're using a traumatic encounter, for lack of a better word, to fuel encouragement in those who don't have a voice or felt like you felt.
Right. And our performance will have a Q&A and talk back that will follow each one of those, in which people will have the opportunity to express how they feel or to ask questions. And there will be a trauma therapist on hand who will be there if someone feels triggered. Yeah.
I love that because you've done your work. You took everything. Everything is done on a personal level, to the point where it seems like intricately you are preparing yourself for someone to pour out in the audience. And I love that. I love that because, you know, COVID, I tell everybody, this is the very first time, and you can research it, this is the very first time we've ever had a world pandemic. The world is going through a tumultuous ordeal. We know someone, a family member, a friend who's died from COVID or has had a traumatic loss from businesses failing, from, you know, just a lot. You know, anxiety and depression is at an all-time high. Job market is horrible. The stock market is horrible. It fluctuates and everything. So we are all going through such a tumultuous ordeal. So I love the fact that you are saying to young people, older people as well, because there are a lot of, I know some older people who haven't dealt with their trauma from childhood, and it shows in their everyday lives. So kudos to you for that. Kudos to you for that. What we're going to do is we're going to allow the audience to see the actual video, and we're going to come right back afterwards. Okay, guys? So take a look. All right. So I can't wait to see it. I love that piece. I love that, just that clip alone. I just cannot wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. I'm so excited for you. So let's jump right in. I'm gonna come back to your performance. Okay. Tell me this. We're currently present day 2022. Let's be clear. 2, right? And with everything that's going on, with everything that has happened, with COVID, loss of life, you know, did you see yourself? And earlier, remember, you talked about being on some real big names on film, right? Not just theater, film. We haven't even gone through your theater experience, you know? And you have a business that you're running. Did you see yourself as successful as you see yourself right now? If not, why? If you did, tell me why.
So this is something that I'm very happy to speak on. As a child, I always knew what I wanted to do. Okay. And so nothing was going to keep me from doing that.
I love that.
And, you know, I got into the North Carolina School of the Arts, not from years and years of training, because I didn't have it. Okay. I got there on raw talent. As a matter of fact, I was surprised that I got into the school. That year was very competitive, I remember, and they only chose, I think it was 16 of us. And they were from all over the world. My class consisted of someone from France, and I mean, it was just...
So it's a little intimidating.
Yes, and these people had been training since they were little. And so I had to learn from scratch and from watching. And so, you know, during my time there, I was probably as thin as a pencil that you write with. And I had one teacher say to me, no one wants to see a chocolate chunk on stage. And I also remember saying to my teachers that I wanted to choreograph a Broadway show. I wanted to have my own dance and theater company, and that I wanted to work in film and television, and they told me I would not be successful and I would not be able to do that. And so I didn't believe it. You know, I did get discouraged quite often, and so, you know, I've taken some of that experience and applied it to my teaching. At the end of my class, I have my students, after we've danced our hearts out, look in the mirror and say to themselves, I am beautiful. I am a dancer, because they need to remind themselves that the fight and the drive lives within them. It does not come from what I say. It does not come from what anyone says.
Right.
But them. And so I stuck with that. And everybody was like, you got to get out of Wilmington. You can't be successful. You can't do this. You got to. I still was told that up until this year. And while I was being told that, I was working on these projects, but because of the contract, I couldn't say anything about those projects. And most people would try to make it a public thing and try to go all out about it. But for me, that wasn't important, because I had nothing to prove. I have nothing to prove to anyone ever. You know, I let the work speak for itself. And everybody has their own experiences with the work. So some people will like some things I do and some won't.
Yeah.
But I was completely shocked when I received the call to first choreograph Line Sisters, which took place, I think it was May and June of 2021. And then when I received the call in August for Our Kind of People, they had done great research, right? And they knew about me, and they knew, like, they studied my resume, and I had to go through all these interviews, and I had to talk to the director and producers, and it was a very different experience. But I was well-versed in social dance, and it was what the show really used to help navigate the story of the upper class of Martha's Vineyard. And so I am humbled, I am grateful, I am actually almost in tears talking about it right now, because I never thought that something like that could happen for someone like me, coming from small Bolivia, North Carolina. But I knew that I wasn't going to stop until it did, and I'm really sad that my parents are not here in the flesh to celebrate this with me. But I know that they are still here.
Yeah.
If not, my mom is making things happen. She was always a hands-on mom, and I'm not going to sit here in front. I am a mama's boy. And people always thought that that was a bad thing, and I never thought so. As a matter of fact, she was the rock.
Yeah.
She was the one that, when everybody else told me, oh, it was great, and I knew it wasn't, she was the one to keep it real and say, no, it wasn't, and you need to fix it. And I appreciated that.
Well, let me say this. I gotta say this because I feel it. So on this show, we say what we feel. So I'm gonna tell you something that I tell my daughter, Zora. I said, I put a blessing on you because God gave me the gift of you being your parent. I put my blessing on you. And so because that blessing is on you, baby, it's nothing that can take that away. You're gonna go through your ups and your downs. But even if when I'm not here, I put that blessing is on you. So, baby, that blessing is on you, okay? Your mom instilled that love, that tenacity, that drive, that stamina, that fortitude, and it's in you. Look at you. Look at you. And you ain't got to argue with them people. Look at you. You made it to in the sky. It's not going to just be over here, because your name is going to be mentioned in other things. You know, your gift will make room for you. You know, it's just a tip of the iceberg. You got the whole mountain to come down. You see what I'm saying? And it's a winding road, but you got it. You got it. I'm not gonna make you cry, because I'm gonna have to get some tissue. Okay. So this is good. This is good. So listen. Now, earlier you were talking about how personal this project is. You know, tell me. This is the fearless motivation piece that I really want my audience to like really understand. When you're dealing with any pieces of art, any work of art, you're gonna go through the ups and the downs. We all go through what is called a winding road. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the gut-wrenching ordeals that would have caused you to possibly give up? And then what were some of the positive situations, the thrillers that really said, you know what, I'm gonna hang in on this, because you had a whole year. A lot can happen in a year, you know? Tell me what were the good and the bad, or the ugly?
So I got the funding for this, and prior to that, I had been attempting to get the funding for it for 4 years. So I've been working on this project for a long time. And I think one of the things that made me possibly want to step away from the project was, I was like, am I suited to tell these people's stories? Like, am I think they call it the imposter syndrome.
Okay.
So like on the inside, I was thinking to myself, you're going to be responsible for displaying these stories on a national touring scale. Can you do that? Right?
Yeah.
So like, I think, and I ask myself that question every time I do some work, because every work that I've created, dance work that I've created, has been rooted in social justice.
Yeah.
School shootings, police brutality, and now sexual trauma. I even did crossing the border from Mexico into the United States.
Okay.
And so I think the thing that I fear most of the time that makes me want to give up is like, why did you pick it, right? I have to go through this whole list of questions to myself. Why did you pick it? Are you suited to do it? And how authentic do you think you can be, right? Yeah. How far are you willing to go? And so all of those things always make me pause and go, I don't know. But then I answer the questions. Okay. And when I answer the questions, I know exactly why I'm doing what I do.
Good.
And it makes room, right, for me to be creative and have my space. But I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat it, Jonesy. Like, I literally have had cry sessions. I've literally driven to a secluded place and sat in the car. I've stormed out of not rehearsal with dancers, but my own, like when I'm in the studio working on stuff, I'm like, forget it. And I just like throw everything and I like walk out and I have to walk around the block. I mean, it's been tough because this is serious. There's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of change that can occur. And being on the cusp of something that's so much bigger than me, so much bigger than the work itself, is terrifying.
It is. But the fact that you have the unmitigated gall to say, I can, I will, I must, the fact that you are able to really take a step back and question your motives, that's maturity. That says to me that you take what you're doing seriously and you take their story seriously, because you're like you said, when it's performed in front of these same people that told you the story, they are going to relive that. And you're sensitive to that. So that right there, my friend, is a key indicator that you are meant for it. Because a lot of times your gifts make room for you, and here's how it makes room. You are able to sit back and think. Thoughts are a guide to what we're initially supposed to do, or what we're supposed to do in the long run, the next step to the next step to the next step. So I love that. I love that 100%. So this leads to my next question. Let me ask you this. You have a dedicated podcast that you narrate with your project as well. And what I love about that is that you're telling a story. Of course, I love podcasts. So the fact that you have one dedicated to this particular project is awesome. Tell me, are you the only narrator? And if you're not, why did you choose additional narrators? I'm curious to know.
So for the podcast, it's just supposed to give like context about what Quiet as It's Kept is about, by interviewing scholars and other dance artists and therapists. But when it comes to the work, there are narrations, but they're not from me, because I didn't want the project to be about me or one particular person. So I chose narrators in the form of rappers to help our audience understand what's happening. So we have Sandrea S. Lee.
Love her.
We have Wild Wild Lamar. And then we have an up-and-coming artist, Chandler Atmosphere Gonzalez. And they all are giving you context around what each vignette is about when it comes up. And our music is being composed by, I have to shout him out, Daniel Bernard Romaine. He's a world-renowned composer from Haiti. He's Haitian, but he is working at Arizona State University, and he does a lot of work in New York. He composes a lot of music for Lincoln Center and all of that. And then Trevor Pena, who lives in Wilmington, is also doing additional music for the work.
You know what I love while I'm looking at you? I'm all about body language. I love that you are passionate about this. You can, it's all on you. I love that it's like an Uber experience. You know what I mean? I'm not shouting out Uber. They're not paying us. I'm talking about the aura that you, the aura that you give off when you talk about it. I love it. See, it's like 9 months of carrying a baby, right? And you took a year, so it's like a lot longer. So it's like you basically you plowed the fields, you tended to, I'm not a farmer, so whatever. You guys know what I'm trying to say. You did what you were supposed to tend to your baby, and you're watching her grow. And that's what I love. When I'm asking you these questions, you can tell that you're like super passionate about what's going on. What's continuously driving you every day to talk, to explain to people, to say, hey, listen, come out and support, because this is something that you're a part of this as well, because we are. Because think about this. People had to go through trauma, but there's also family members who have had to either take them to counseling, who have to deal with the aftermath, you know?
So I think for me, I just want, the thing that drives me every day is that I know that dance can overcome boundaries, right? Because we all speak different languages, right? We all have different vernaculars. We all come from different parts of the world. But the one thing that we have in common is physicality, right? And that can come in many shapes and forms. And so we can use our bodies or a simple movement to communicate a feeling, an emotion, or express something. And so I just want, especially us, Black people, I want Black people to embrace the art form of classical dance, contemporary dance, modern dance more. Because at one point we did. Yeah. And somehow or another we've gotten away from that. And the likes of Alvin Ailey and Ron Brown and Camille A. Brown. And so I think that we, especially in the coastal region and in the South, need to embrace contemporary dance. You know, we all go see a musical, or we'll go see Tyler Perry, or we'll do whatever, but where are we? Why are we not showing up for that? We need to show up for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Can you tell my audience, how'd you beat the system? You know, earlier in the conversation, you spoke about it, but I want this question to kind of resonate a little bit differently. How did you beat the system? Beat the system of that teacher or teachers, because it sounded like it was more than one, that said you couldn't, you would never. You know, especially with that statement, you know, no one wants to see what
a chocolate chunk.
A chocolate chunk. You know, so with those defeating statements, how did you beat the system? What is your why for continuously doing what you love to do?
The why is because I love it. And the way I beat the system, I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
The way I got past all of that is I didn't let it define me, because the number one thing that we do as human beings is when somebody tells us something, we embody it.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it.
Good.
I didn't do it. I said, you know what? That's your belief, but I know something different. And I just always had this feeling that I could do it. And I still feel like there's so much more to do. But I am so thankful to finally be getting to a place where I'm doing it.
And doing it well. And doing it well. I mean, do you realize that you're on syndicated networks, baby? You're syndicated. That's nothing light. That's not to be taken lightly.
I am, you know, honestly, Jonesy, I still have not wrapped my head around that.
I keep trying to wrap your head around it. I do, but it's okay. I know that you're a loving and humble person, but there's so much more to come. There's so much more to come. I just want to be a guest or invited to like one of the red carpet events, if you don't mind. If I could be one of your guests, I would definitely love to accompany you. I'm going to ask you this. What would you say to another young lady, young man, from where you started to now? What advice would you give them?
Living your truth. Embrace what it is that you want. And never, as hard as it may be, never take the words of others when it comes to what you want. Never take the word of others to heart. Take what's important and then leave the other stuff where it is. And be authentically you, and do what you want to do as an artist.
I love that. I love that. This is another question that I think that, you know, you'll be able to answer, but you may not. But it's just all about, because you're a planner, and I love that about you. So where do you see yourself? Where do you see Techmoja Dance and Theater Company? Where do you see Kevin Lee White Green in 5 to 10 years?
It is my hope that at that point, the company, I mean, we are now getting ready to go on our national/international tour. And our theater company has been talked to about a residency, possibly in Las Vegas. But what I see is Techmoja spreading its wings and hopefully putting drops of Techmoja throughout the United States. Okay. And so, you know, there's Techmoja Wilmington and Techmoja Atlanta, you know, and Techmoja whatever. But like, my hope is that, because it's so much more than just the work, it's a family atmosphere, and it's very important because we bring in young people too, and we educate them and we lift them up, and they get kind of a big buddy in a sense, or a mentor, because they all take to at least one of the other adults. Because Techmoja is comprised of ex-gang members, it's comprised of single mothers, it's comprised of people with disabilities.
Okay.
And so it makes for a very real, humbling experience like no other. And I love that everybody can authentically be Black or authentically be people of color and thrive. Black owned, Black run.
Okay. Would you be willing to accept other minorities?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, it's when I say that, I'm like, we're specifically telling the stories of people, of Black people, but we are also telling stories of people of color.
Okay.
That was why I brought up the crossing the border piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Okay.
spent time, you know, learning about the Hispanic community, and I spent many days, many hours at their gatherings and whatever have you, and interviewing people and learning about their experience of coming into the United States, undocumented.
How was that experience for you?
It was an enriching experience.
Okay.
We actually had a cultural exchange. Our company got to meet their community, and we were able to exchange dance, we were able to exchange conversation, and we still forged great friendships from that. And I think that's what Techmoja is about.
I love
Connecting people across boundaries.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about doing doing something with the Native people? There's so many Native tribes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know that that's a lot that is not touched a lot, but there are so many Native tribes that I think that would be willing and open to work with you. I definitely would love to learn more about that. And then lastly, how can my daughter be a part of Techmoja? How can my daughter be a part of Techmoja?
So, you know, depending on what we have going on, like sometimes there are things for adults and sometimes there are things that incorporate children. We did a piece called The Love That Forgives that was about the 4 girls in the Birmingham church bombing of 1963.
That's a hard forgiving.
Which is another one I want to film. I want to do a film version of.
Well, you know, my daughter has experience. So.
Yes.
I'll throw her out there.
And so you can find out more about how to join Techmoja or be a part of Techmoja by going to techmoja.org, TECHMOJA. That's TECHMOJA.org.
Okay.
Or you can find me on Facebook or on our Instagram, TECHMOJA Company. So yes.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic experience, and I thank you for saying yes. I love it when my friends say yes, because like I said, I knew you had a story, and I know that your story will set a precedence. It will open someone's mind. It will cause that fear, shame, and doubt to go away, and understand that we as people, we go through life. See, this is my motto. In order to talk a little shit, you got to go through a little shit. Sometimes you go through a lot of shit.
I've been through a lot.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, there were early on. Would you say that there were naysayers that didn't believe that you could do this?
Yes, and you know, it was 2014, the last year of my mother's life. Her health declined. Our house burned down, and 2 months later, she's getting better, and then a month later she dies, and then I'm homeless, right? But I wasn't really homeless because I did have a brother, but like when I say homeless, I mean like the thing that I knew was home wasn't there, and so I was sleeping in cars, I was sleeping on people's couches. I ended up staying with a really good friend and her family for about a year, and then I moved in with one of my best friends, and we're still roommates today. But prior to that, it was rough.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to ask for any help from anybody because I didn't think anybody cared, because all I kept hearing prior to that was, what's he gonna do? He doesn't have his mom, he's gonna crumble, it's gonna fall apart. I mean, it's amazing how negative people can be in a moment like that. And they were already saying that I needed to move away and be here and do this and do that. But I always knew, my mother said, you gotta learn how to hustle, son, and you gotta know how to use what you have.
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
that was my little story. I didn't mean to throw that in at the end.
You're fine. You're fine. Because people will deflect their incapabilities onto you because they don't see it for themselves. See, you got to see it. I know it's a cliche thing, but you got to see it before you see it. And you got to say it before it happens. It's called manifestation, if you didn't know it. So I think that the fact that you were able to manifest what you really love and what you want to do, and then also your mother's blessing on your life, I believe that so much. This is why you have been on syndicated networks. This is why you're able to work with some great name people, and I thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Folks, that's going to wrap it up, but I want to leave you with this. Yes, the motivation series is over, but don't give up on you, because nobody can do what you're purposed to do. It's called being authentically you. See, you're gonna go down a winding road, right? But you don't have to take that road that everyone else has taken. You can create your own path and leave a trail. So until next time, my sweets, stay well.